snow clearing out at approximately $500 a clearing. And they're thinking that they will continue to look at that if it's something that they can continue to do, because they might get a cheaper deal from a local contractor than what it truly costs them. And then the deep cleaning that was discussed in the previous memo has been pulled out because LAPA thought if the city was going to contract that out every 2 to 3 years, they would just look at contracting it out. And then basically LAPA closes the facility every night after the city staff would open it, and they would also look after opening and closing it on weekends and holidays. After the Lacombe District Recreation Parks and Culture Board, they had made the first motion on June 19th for more information. They made a second motion on July 17th that the Lacombe District Recreation Parks and Culture Board recommends to City Council that the staff open ME Global Athletic Park for general use during work days, and that the administration take forward to Council the following motion: that the City of Lacombe carry out the prescribed maintenance and continue to foster a cooperative relationship with LAPA. And the opening and closing of the opening of the man gate takes place during work days by the parks crew, is already within their area of work that they can cover. And so I guess I open up now for any questions or thoughts, concerns.
Councillor Foster, Bosma, then Ripple.
Thanks, Christy. Sandy, this is a phenomenal facility, and I'm really happy that things have gone this way. I think there's been a real learning curve for both sides, and I think it'll help for other facilities and other types of things as we go forward. I'm in complete agreement with all the recommendations, except for one that I am concerned about, and I just wanted some clarification. Opening the gate, what time in the morning would we open the gate?
Calvin's park staff look after that when they come in the morning, so I don't know if it's any specific time first thing, but yeah, it's
7 o'clock.
Okay.
7 o'clock.
So, and then it'll be looked after at the evening by LAP and the weekends. So right now, that place is locked up tight unless those people are there. As far as I've gone by, it's always locked. I am concerned that is a very expensive piece of real estate that if it's left unsupervised, what damages could occur. And so I don't know if that's something we should consider or not. Is that something that you would be?
That is something that Rec Board discussed and talked about, the benefits versus the negatives of leaving something that's valuable open like that for the general public to use. There was, the idea of getting people more active more often and, reducing our health costs in the long term, but also, if something were to happen, how expensive it could be. To date, LAPA has only had 2 incidents, I believe. One was some garbage knocked over. The garbage cans hadn't been emptied, and so they had been dumped over, and now they've continued since then to empty their garbages after every function. And I think the other one was some spray paint on the Fieldhouse building itself shortly after it had been opened. But those were the only things that Darren had brought to our attention at Rec Board. And one thing I forgot to mention is Darren was here tonight. He was hoping to stay, but he had a meeting, and nor Don Gustafson or Gary McDonald were able to come. But when they spoke at Rec Board, I mean, the passion that they have is amazing. Like I mean, when I'm talking to you, I'm reading it off. It's nothing like the passion that comes out in their voices. And that was one thing Rec Board noted, and thought that it was great to hear them come and present to them. So that was something I forgot to mention.
Yeah, no question that they're very passionate, and it wouldn't have happened without all the cooperation. No, my only concern was the turf itself, because it was so expensive that if it got damaged, cut, whatever, I guess that was, so. Anyway, it seems like we're gonna probably see how it goes for a while, and I'm sure Calvin will monitor that with his staff. Thank you.
Just to Councillor Foster, as was indicated, that discussion did occur at the rec board level, and certainly I just bring to your attention that any facility that is well used is far less likely to be vandalized or damaged than a facility that is not well used. When there are public there, public do police each other, and vandalism is reduced through use. So I just bring that to your attention.
Councillor Bosma?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. 2 items. The snow removal. Snow removal probably is not that critical, except if we get an unexpected snowfall during a camp or when they had their previous commitments. Correct? Because we wouldn't be removing snow in January. Okay. My other thought just disappeared. I'll come back.
I think it was prior to December and after March 1st was.
Yeah, the fields, when it's open and for bookings and whatnot, of course, during bookings, there's no public use. And bookings usually last, depending on how well the teams do and other communities use the facility, until potentially late November. And then it's sometime into March is a potential time when they start wanting to make use of it again.
I recall, though, that there was some discussion in terms of these costs that are now being presented, so we have an understanding of what this would cost. There was some consideration on their part that they'd be willing to, quote-unquote, pay for it, rather than us donate it. Any further discussion on that?
To Councillor Bosma, there has not been further discussion. Certainly, LAPA was advised that the city would give consideration to performing this maintenance. That exercise was undertaken and completed. We're able to perform the maintenance within our existing budget and within using the existing complements of staff. So there'll be no increases required on the part of the city to do this maintenance. Hence, certainly it's felt that the city's in a position to do it.
Councillor Ripple?
I'd like to make a motion that council approve the Lacombe District Recreation Parks and Culture Board's recommendation for staff to open the Lacombe Athletic Park for general use during work days, and that council approve administration's recommendation that the city carry out the prescribed maintenance and continue to foster a cooperative relationship with LAPA.
Thank you. Councillor Creasy?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I think there's some very common sense things in here as far as the maintenance goes. I was just curious what makes this so important that we're doing this outside of regular budget process. I mean, the LAPA brought forth a very rosy financial outlook, which is great. I'm just curious why we're doing this partway through a season, a financial season, as it were.
To Councillor Creasy, certainly LAPA's financial standing is very good. There is money in reserves. They have asked that we look at this maintenance. This year, we wanted the city staff to be aware of the maintenance requirements on the artificial turf. And certainly we want to prolong the life of this facility. And we feel by performing this maintenance as a city, we can prolong the life so that replacement can be extended to 12 years versus 8 years if we were depending on and utilizing volunteers. The discussion took place earlier in the spring, prior to the season really getting underway. Certainly that doesn't coincide with our budget cycle. That is when the information or the request came forward from the LAPA group. And because it doesn't have a direct budget impact, there's no increase to budget. That's why it's coming forward at this time.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, but let's not say Lacombe can afford it because they didn't ask, we offered. Mr. Gagnon made that perfectly clear, they didn't ask for this maintenance, you offered.
In my discussion with Mr. Gagnon, the request was made that we consider undertaking this maintenance and that we meet with the AstroTurf representative to understand the maintenance requirement. That's how that was presented.
Because he made it perfectly clear at the meeting that you and Mayor Christie and Councillors Rempel and Fowlsman and I were at the rec meeting, that they did not make the request. And I know it's just semantics, but he was extremely adamant about that in a previous telephone conversation. So we've had a public record to make that clear that in fact, the request was not made by Lacombe.
I think for clarification purposes, Councillor Creasy, the request to the city was to look at the maintenance requirements and to meet with the representatives of AstroTurf to confirm the maintenance requirement. And I then said the city would take into consideration the possibility of carrying out this maintenance in that meeting. So that's what transpired in that particular meeting.
Okay, so thank you for that. So then it was the understanding that in fact the maintenance would be carried out for the remainder of this year, or it would be worked into next year's work schedule cycle, or how would that go?
Certainly the understanding was that if we, the city, were in a position to undertake the maintenance, it would be effective immediately.
Councillor Rempel?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I just want to say I think part of the discussion was that they didn't necessarily ask for us to pay for it. They said, from what I understand is, they said, is it something that the city would look at? And if so, would there be a cost, or how would that work? So that was my understanding of it. And whether they asked or didn't ask, whether they offered to pay or didn't offer to pay, I think, as was already said here, we want to make sure this field lasts as long as possible. So I think the right thing to do is to train our people to do this and do it the right way. And let's get the longest life we can out of the field. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the floor. Councillor Kite?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I just wanted to make one comment from the background information where it states that it has always been understood that maintenance of the field would at some point be provided by the city. For future reference, I think it would be prudent for the council of the day, when we have other facilities, to identify what that would be, so that when we give monies to operate a facility, whether it's the Performing Arts Center or whatever else it is, that we would know what at some point would be when we make a long-term budget plan, so that this wouldn't happen again when it's 2 years instead of our assumed 5 years or 10 years or whatever it might be, just for budget purposes.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? So carried. Thank you. Sandy, don't move. One more. Recreation Board and Administration, Lacombe District Recreation, Parks and Culture, Student Representative appointment.
So this should be a quick and easy one. Basically, we've got appointment of our student rep for the Lacombe District Rec Board, and we have received nomination and application for Kelsey Olson as our student representative to act as one of our high school reps. And she basically has been involved in sports and cultural activities and would like to represent the young people in Lacombe and be their voice. And that fills the requirements as a student rep on rec board. And we've also, administration has approached the local high schools for any interested students to come forward, and we didn't receive any other ones. So Mayor Christie had reviewed Kelsey Olson's application as well as it went to rec board. And they made the following motion, that Lacombe District Recreation Parks and Culture Board recommend to council that Kelsey Olson be appointed to the Lacombe District Recreation Parks and Culture Board as a student representative for the 2013-2014. And that follows the council's new procedures along the lines of having representatives come forward to our meetings.
You bet. Thank you. Councillor Kite?
I so move.
Thank you. All those in favor? So carried. Thank you. I think, Manager Stewart, you get to go home. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mayor Christie.
Thanks, Andy. We will go to Economic Development and Community Services Energy Retailer. Manager Lapointe. Thank you for sticking with us for your entire evening as well.
Almost fell asleep back there.
Hey, come on. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Christie and Council. For something new this evening, I thought we could talk about electricity.
Sparking my interest.
As you may recall from the May 27th meeting, you requested a business case on the utility boutique energy retailing model. You now have that case in hand, and I'll summarize some of the key points. Usage rates from other boutique retailers that partnered with UtilityNet were used for projection purposes in the business case. The anticipated fixed rate pricing would be approximately 7.85 cents per kilowatt hour, which is very competitive with other retailers' offerings. There are some promotional opportunities available, including seniors and nonprofit rates, as well as referral discounts. UtilityNet has stressed that they are open to suggestions on this front and are willing to work with us to formulate creative strategies. The recommendation is for a fixed rate only pricing, as this would limit exposure to large fluctuations in the market. The AESO portion of the potential would be covered by a letter of credit produced once annually. There would be a one-time fee for the service. If carved out from our overdraft protection, there would be no impact on our debt servicing. Fortis would waive their portion of the prudential given our good credit standing. It is anticipated that there would be significant growth in the first 3 years, with things slowing thereafter with a plateau at about 1,500 customers. And I've been told that's optimistic, but there is some grounding in that too as well, considering that in Olds they've generated 250 customers with no marketing in 18 months. At 1,500 customers, it is projected that around $200,000 annually would be raised for community-based projects. Branding this entity as Eco Energy would increase awareness of that program, that being Eco Lacombe, provide regular funding for success, and eliminate staff time required to construct a new brand. A target launch date of January 1st, 2014 is anticipated, but that would be dependent upon the reviewing of the contract, coordinating marketing efforts, and the initial launch of Eco Lacombe. One final note, these estimates are of course nothing but estimates and can be given the electricity market is deregulated, projections can and will change. We are looking for direction from council and on how you'd like to proceed this evening. And with that, I'm open to questions, comments, and of course, concerns.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kite and Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Manager Lapointe, thank you for the very detailed business case. I only had one clarification I needed to ask. When we had the presentation here first time, he did say that we could cancel this at any time, right?
I think from a resident perspective, they could actually cancel their service. I believe if we sign the contract, it's a 3-year term.
3-year term. So if we, for whatever reason, do not find enough clients, then in 3 years.
If we're not happy with the service, yeah, we could terminate it at that point. He's also indicated that if for any reason we wanted to limit the amount of customers, we could cap it ourselves too as well at a certain number. Again, they are very flexible on that piece.
Councillor Connick.
Okay, so for my own clarification then, do we have three options then? Is that what I'm hearing? We could do this, the spot boutique energy, or we can do the other two? Like I'm
To Councillor Connick, do not confuse this opportunity with our electrical services contract for our municipal facilities. So what we discussed earlier, the presentations earlier, are for an electrical contract for our municipal facilities. What we're discussing now is working with UtilityNet, who's a retailer, in terms of procuring power and setting up accounts, primarily residential accounts, and we would be eligible to retain a margin of the profit from the sale of power to those accounts. Two very different issues.
okay, then thank you for that, but I was under the impression that the first presentation we had was spot power, that we would be buying and using that power for our facilities as well. Now you're saying that's not the case with this one.
I think they did give us the option, but we made it very clear that there was a process that we wanted to go through, and we will follow through on that process. So if they would have the option to bid on our services if they'd like, but you know, it's our option to, you know, to follow through if they had the best pricing available.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Foster, Creasy, then Ripple.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. Guy, thanks again for all the work that you've done on this. It is really encouraging to see the information that has made it a lot more comfortable for me, even though I was sold on it right off the bat. I think this is solidified, and it really, I guess the other part of this is, which resonates with a meeting that we had a little while ago talking about strategic planning. This really fits in with where we're wanting to go, and I think it is a great opportunity, and it's completely voluntary for the citizens. So I would like to make the motion that we direct administration to formalize an agreement with UtilityNet and proceed with an implementation plan.
Thank you. Councillor Creasy.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. Just so I'm not confused here, the Echo Energy and Leaf logo, is that specific to us?
It's a suggestion at this point. It's based on the Echo Lacombe Community Endowment Fund.
Right.
And so we basically lifted that and moved it over to Echo Energy. And it's a recommendation that we're making that if we do implement the program, that we would use that and funnel the dollars into Echo Lacombe.
Yeah, which is certainly fine. I guess the only suggestion I would just like to see Lacombe in there. Energy Lacombe, Lacombe Energy, or whatever, just so there's no confusion.
Fair enough.
That was all I was.
Okay.
I think this sounds like a terrific opportunity.
Councillor Ripple.
Oh, sorry, I was going to make the motion. It's been made already.
Okay.
The same.
Councillor Bosma.
I hate to disagree, but I don't think that we should add Lacombe to that name. Echo Energy sounds awesome to me. It also allows us to expand beyond our own little borders if we so choose to do that.
I guess my reasoning was just so that people understood that in fact this was going to benefit the community. Makes a little more sense to me than the minuscule chance of it becoming another Epcor in the next 100 years or something.
I too would support the Echo Energy as it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. It's as a service provider, it's not always seen as positive when people open their bills, and it's just one more area that Lacombe could be criticized or ostracized for as well. And as these guys came forward, they would be handling all that We know that we're going to get calls already with that, so Echo Lacombe, I think, is short and sweet to the point, and through marketing of our own, or Echo Energy, sorry, through the marketing of our own department and our own people that would be selling that, we can make that happen. I think make that available out there. So that's just my thoughts too. But the motion is on the floor. Any further discussion with regards to that? And that was to move forward into a contract. Is that correct? All right. All those in favor? So carried.
I should wait until the end of the night every time.
It's over 3 times lucky. You got something else? Thanks for all the work.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you once again for your patience.
Phoning them tonight.
Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Council and Legislative Citizen Satisfaction Survey results and recommendations. CEO McQuarrie.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Before council this evening is a memorandum that speaks to how we'll follow up from the results of the survey. Certainly there was a presentation done by Bannister Research, and in that presentation they highlighted what we do well as a city, and I certainly feel that needed to be highlighted. And I reiterate certainly quality of life, the friendliness of the community, the small town atmosphere are all things that we can pride ourselves in. I'll also just reiterate that the survey, both residential and business surveys, are statistically valid. They do reflect the demographic profile of the community, and that was a very important aspect of this survey. What I really wanted to emphasize this evening is what we're doing in terms of those areas where we can improve, and certainly there's always opportunity for improvement. So I wanted to talk about what residents highlighted as the single most important issue, and that being the attraction of businesses and commercial development, followed by concerns around garbage and recycling. So in terms of business attraction, we are being proactive. We have an improved marketing program, things like downtown signage, and we continue to work with businesses on that. Our retention strategies, we have set up a business visitation program. We have gone out and visited local businesses to identify what their specific needs are. We also have a local business training program where opportunities for businesses to undertake training is in place. We're proactively pursuing land acquisition. I firmly believe that we have improved customer relations with our businesses, and that's been very intentional to establish those relationships. We're looking at and reviewing regulatory requirements. An example of that is the downtown architectural guidelines, what that's going to look like for businesses. And then we're researching viability of new initiatives, as an example, a business incubator, and what that might look like in the city of Lacombe. So certainly what we hope to do is to further increase our commercial industrial base, and that's going to help to alleviate any tax burden on our residential tax base, and also creates affordable shopping opportunities within the community. Insofar as garbage and recycling, we have opened up, as you all know, our public consultation around that, and we look forward to bringing the results of that back to council in September. Other areas that the public identified for improvements would be childcare. There was a relatively low level of satisfaction, land use planning and approvals, and again the attraction and supporting of local business. And finally, there is the cited need for more recreation facilities in the community. What are we doing in those areas? Well, the childcare is operated by an independent society. However, FCSS and Community Services are working with that board to assist in developing a long-term sustainable plan in the community. Insofar as the planning and development department, that department has been understaffed for a number of months. I'm pleased to say the department is now fully staffed, And I feel that's going to enhance the level of service coming out of the department. The staff are working collaboratively. There's internal training within the department. I will mention that in terms of applications that come forward, there are statutory periods that we have to acknowledge. So in some instances, those statutory periods cannot be changed or altered, but we can educate applicants as to what they are so people understand what an appeal period is and the length of time that appeal period may be. And all of that's going to result in improved customer service. We will certainly be reviewing or are reviewing the municipal development plan and land use bylaw, and that's to work towards making sure there's developable land available in the community, and also to ensure that our historic buildings remain intact, and that's being identified as of high importance, that's not compromised in any way. And finally, we are looking to implement the heritage management plan, which council's adopted, and again, to ensure that the historic buildings in our community are designated and preserved. We also have a 10-year plan that identifies council priorities in terms of capital development. That plan is subject to annual reviews, so there's always the opportunity to bring forward recreation facilities as we deliberate each year in regard to that plan. And we will finish the Recreation and Culture Master Plan in the coming months, so there's opportunity to identify needed facilities in that plan as well. I spoke to business attraction earlier, and that is a priority, and that will continue to be a focus for us. In addition to that, we're working on a housing needs assessment, and of course we're looking to determine how best to provide affordable, attainable housing in the community. So that speaks to the affordability challenge that was also identified in the survey. And then we had snow removal, sidewalks, and water and sewer services identified as areas for improvement. Certainly snow removal is an ongoing challenge for us in most cities, and there will be possible changes as we move into our next budget cycle and deliberations. For council's consideration, there will be some changes proposed. We have a sidewalk evaluation program that looks at our sidewalk system and allows us to undertake and inspect that system annually. We've added $100,000 in 2013 for sidewalk improvements, so certainly that is a focal point as far as improving our local pedestrian walkways. The water or the cost of water and sewer systems is calculated on a cost recovery basis. So certainly we now are part of a regional water system, and with that there was a corresponding increase in cost, quality, and reliability. We certainly are working regionally looking at a regional wastewater system and working very hard with our municipal neighbors and the provincial government on that particular initiative. Again, business attraction, I spoke to that, and we continue to be proactive in working with our local businesses. So this information is presented for council's information. Certainly I think it's important that council and the public understand that we're working on those areas that have been identified for improvement, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Councillor Kite?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I just wanted to make the motion and comment also that this also goes very well with our strategic plan that we're going to cover later, so I'll comment later on that. But I wanted to make the motion that we accept that 2013 Citizen Satisfaction Survey report as information.
Thank you. Councillor Connick?
Just a real quick question for CEO McCoy. What is business incubation?
To Councillor Connick, business incubation is setting up a center where startup businesses would have resources at their disposal. So as a city, we will be very involved in providing and creating that center and those resources, and working with local businesses to access those resources.
Sounds good.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? So carried. Thank you. Let's move to the arena in Curling Lake, Kinsman Aquatic Center, Barnett Arena. CEO Macquarie, did you want to introduce that?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I will. Before you this evening, Council, is a memorandum that is seeking funding, allowing us to undertake a further review of our Barnett Arena. The funding request is in the amount of $20,996, and that is to engage the services of Stantec Consulting. Administration has been in discussion with Stantec Consulting in Superior Safety Codes in terms of the non-compliant issues that exist at the Barnett Arena in the Aquatic Center. There is a need to remediate these deficiencies in those buildings if we are to continue to have public use at those sites. Now, the issue that we have before us is the cost to undertake those renovations, the time frame in which to do so, and how that's going to fit with Superior safety codes in terms of allowing us to perform renovations over time versus carrying out those renovations once any amendments or alterations start. So we are proposing to enter into or to establish a memorandum of understanding with Superior Safety Codes that would be drafted by